Welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. Feels like lots going on, so much to get to today.
Yeah.
Let's just dive right in. Starting with this confrontation at the Department of Education. It's all over the headlines.
Yeah, making waves for sure. Seems like we might be looking at a real change in how Congress and the Department of Education interact with each other.
How so?
Well, members of Congress, including Maxine Waters, were straight up denied entry to the building.
Wow.
Yeah, just blocked right at the door by security personnel. No explanation given.
Seriously.
Yeah.
That's a bold move.
Yeah.
What do we know about what's behind this whole lockdown thing?
Nobody's talking right now. That's part of what's fueling all the speculation and concern,
Right.
The Congress people who were there are saying this is setting a really bad precedent, denying them access like that. They're pointing to their oversight responsibilities as elected representatives. And they're worried about what this means for parents and advocates who need to be able to get into the Department of Education.
I can see why they'd be concerned. It's definitely raising some eyebrows. And then there's this contrast with how some pretty powerful people seem to be able to get access just fine.
Right. There's that whole question of who actually has the ear of the Department of Education? How much influence do they have? And how are these decisions being made when nobody's watching? That's what people want to know.
Absolutely. This whole thing is definitely developing, and we'll keep you updated as we learn more. In the meantime, though, there's another political fight brewing. This time, it's over sanctuary cities.
Oh, yeah, that's heating up for sure. Attorney General Pam Bondi is really coming down hard on sanctuary cities and states. We're talking lawsuits for anyone who isn't completely on board with federal immigration law.
So basically, Bondi's saying, do what we say or else.
Exactly. Pretty much a comply or face the consequences situation.
This is such a complicated issue, so many strong opinions on both sides. Can you remind us what the core arguments are here?
Sure. So the main argument against sanctuary cities is that they're putting the safety of undocumented immigrants above the safety of citizens and law enforcement. Critics are saying these policies are basically creating safe havens for criminals and making it harder to enforce immigration laws. On the other hand, people who support sanctuary cities say they're actually making cities safer overall because they build trust between immigrant communities and law enforcement. They also say it's a more humane approach to immigration, given all the complexities.
Okay, so we've got a legal battle in the works and a clash of ideologies at the heart of it all. Sounds like this one's going to be around for a while.
Oh, absolutely. Keep an eye on this one. The outcome of these lawsuits could have a huge impact on states' rights and federal authority. It'll be really interesting to see how the courts handle these tricky legal questions and how the public reacts to the rulings.
And on top of all this political drama, we've got another debate raging, this time in the world of sports. The whole question of transgender athletes in women's sports is really getting people fired up. Strong feelings on all sides.
Yeah, no kidding. This conversation is only getting louder, especially with this TikTok coach who's calling for action. She's urging women's sports media and athletes to come out publicly in support of trans women being included in women's sports. Her story and the anxieties she shared really bring home how personal this debate is for so many people.
It definitely does. So what are the main arguments on each side of this issue?
Well, the folks advocating for inclusion of transgender athletes in women's sports are really focused on equality and fairness. They're saying trans women should have all the same opportunities to compete as cisgender women. It boils down to the idea that trans women are women, period, and they deserve to be treated as such. Now, on the other side, the people who want to keep separate categories for cisgender and transgender athletes are often worried about competitive fairness. They argue that biological differences between men and women could give trans women an unfair advantage in some sports.
It sounds like there are valid concerns on both sides. This isn't a simple issue to solve. A lot riding on this one, like questions of identity, fairness, and the future of women's sports.
Exactly. It's like we're trying to balance the need for inclusion with the need for fair competition. It's complex, no easy answers, and it's something we'll definitely be looking at more closely in future deep dives.
It really does feel like we're living in a time of constant change and heated debate. What are your thoughts on how people can navigate these complex issues?
I think the most important thing is to stay informed. Be open to different perspectives. Try not to jump to conclusions, These issues are so multifaceted. We need to consider all sides of the story before forming an opinion.
That's such a crucial point.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the emotions of these debates, but we need to step back and engage in thoughtful, nuanced discussions.
Absolutely. And remember, these issues are all connected in a lot of ways. We're having this bigger conversation about power, representation, and who gets to shape our society.
That's really insightful. Like these seemingly separate stories are all tapping into some of the same core themes, whether it's access to government, debates over immigration, or the fight for inclusion in sports. It all comes back to power and representation.
It really does. And these debates aren't just happening in courtrooms or on social media. They're playing out in our daily lives, too. Our workplaces, schools, communities. These issues are shaping the very fabric of our society.
So how can we as individuals make our voices heard and contribute to positive change?
I think it starts with education. We have to understand the nuances of these issues, move past those catchy slogans, and really wrestle with the complexity. That means reading from different sources, listening to a variety of perspectives, and having thoughtful conversations even when we disagree with someone.
You're right. It's so easy to get stuck in those echo chambers where we only hear what we already agree with. But real change comes from hearing diverse viewpoints and challenging our own assumptions.
You got it. And it's not just about listening, it's about speaking up too, using our voices to support the values we believe in, whether that's through voting, reaching out to our elected officials, or getting involved with community organizations.
So basically, you're saying that informed engagement is key. We need to be both informed and actively involved in shaping the world we want to live in.
Exactly. We can't leave these crucial issues to just politicians and commentators. We all have a part to play in shaping the future of our society.
It can feel really overwhelming though, right? Like
Yeah.
these issues are so big and complicated that it's hard to know where to start. What would you suggest for someone who feels kind of paralyzed by it all?
Start small. Focus on the issues that really resonate with you and find ways to get involved in your local community. Maybe volunteer for an organization that aligns with your values, go to a town hall meeting, or even just start conversations about these topics with your friends and family.
That's really helpful. It reminds us that even small actions can make a difference. We don't have to solve every problem in the world right away, but we can all contribute to positive change in our own ways.
Exactly. And change takes time. It's a process that requires patience, persistence, and a willingness to keep talking, even when it's tough.
And these conversations we're having now, these deep dives into important issues, are a big part of that process. They help us understand how complex the world is and empower us to be more informed and engaged citizens.
That's the heart of it, really. Empowering individuals to make a difference. The stories we talked about today aren't just headlines. They're reflections of who we are as a society, and they're shaping the future we're building together.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a thought.
What role will you play in shaping the narrative and driving the change you want to see in the world? These stories are unfolding not just around us, but because of us, our choices, our actions, and our voices.
That's a powerful reminder that we all have a responsibility to stay informed, engage in meaningful conversations, and stand up for what we believe in. The future isn't set in stone. It's something we create together.
And it's not just about listening, it's about speaking up too. Using our voices to support what we believe in, like through voting or contacting our representatives or getting involved in our communities.
Yeah, making sure our voices are heard. So you're saying informed engagement is what matters.
Yeah.
We need to be both informed and actively involved in creating the world we want.
You got it. We can't just sit back and let politicians and talking heads decide everything. We all have a role to play in shaping the future.
It can feel really overwhelming sometimes though, right? These issues are so big and complicated.
Yeah.
It's hard to know where to even begin. What advice would you give to someone who feels kind of stuck?
Start small. I'd say focus on the issues that really resonate with you personally and find ways to get involved locally. Maybe volunteer with an organization that shares your values, go to a town hall, or even just start talking about these things with your friends and family.
I like that. It's a good reminder that we don't have to do everything at once. Even small actions can have a ripple effect.
Exactly. And remember, change doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, it takes persistence, and it takes a willingness to keep those conversations going, even when they're difficult.
And these conversations we're having right now, these deep dives into important topics, they're a big part of that process.
Yeah.
Right? They help us understand this complex world and become more informed, engaged citizens.
That's what it's all about, empowering people to make a difference. These stories we've been talking about, they're not just headlines. They reflect who we are as a society, and they're shaping the future we're building together.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
What role will you play in shaping the narrative and making the changes you want to see? These stories aren't just happening around us, they're happening because of us. because of the choices we make, the actions we take, and the voices we raise.
It's a good reminder that we all have a responsibility to stay informed, have those tough conversations, and stand up for what we believe in. The future isn't predetermined. We're the ones creating it. They really are. These are stories that need our attention. They need us to think critically, to be willing to have those tough conversations.
And it's those conversations, these deep dives, that help us go beyond just skimming the surface. That's how we can really grapple with just how complicated our world is.
Exactly. So we encourage you to keep digging deeper, keep asking those questions, and keep looking for different perspectives.
The world's changing fast, and it's on each of us to stay informed, to stay engaged. Don't be afraid to question what you think you know, to challenge the way things are, and to fight for the future you want to see.
Well said. That about wraps things up for this deep dive.
Stay curious out there, everyone. Keep learning, keep talking, and we'll see you next time.